All right. As Ryan mentioned before, sorry, we're trying to figure out how to make sure you can actually see us. As Ryan mentioned before, we don't spend a lot of time in here talking about the past. We also don't spend a lot of time in here talking about the future when we talk about this organization. We really, with Najim's talk and the rest of the program, we tend to not go too meta, right? We tend to keep it topical. But we thought it would be valuable for everyone in here to get to know the man who's going to run this organization going forward. And with that, wait, I need the clicker, so sorry. All right, so, Edward.
Yes, sir.
Ed?
Edward.
Who's Ed?
Ed is my father.
Okay.
Yes.
So first point of record. Where do you live?
I live in the great Pacific Northwest. You can find me in Portland, Oregon.
Have you been there your whole life?
No, I was actually born in a small little town called Fordyce, Arkansas. Little odd fact, the same doctor that delivered my father delivered me, and I was born in a small house.
Well, okay. Are you comfortable up here right now?
Yeah, I get on stage a lot. One of my things I do in my little side career, I do a little community theater, but everything's very scripted. You know what you're gonna say, what you're gonna do, what someone else is gonna do. This is like kind of free form, so it's a little different.
Explain this photo.
So I was in a recent production of Full Monty, and this is one of the promotional shots for the piece. And Full Monty was a growing experience. Anyone who knows me pretty well, I'm a pretty modest guy. I don't even walk around the house without a shirt on. And Full Monty was really kind of exposing yourself for art. So it was quite an experience.
So how does that compare to sitting on stage at NANOG?
Yeah, that was way harder.
So you've actually done a lot of stage acting. Can you tell me about these characters? On the left, you know, this is Driving Miss Daisy. On the right, this is Oklahoma.
Yeah, Driving Miss Daisy was the last production that I did. It was a musical. I played the lead of Curly during that play. And in Driving Miss Daisy, of course, I played Houck.
What was it like to step into those characters?
You know, it's interesting. Oklahoma was just, it's not me, it's another character, it's someone else. And you do it, it's fun, you have a great time. Driving Miss Daisy was actually a unique experience for me. I really liked the character of Houck. I mean, I really kind of just dove in, spent time with it, and usually when the play is over, it's like done. I'm happy, it was fun to do it, let's go on and do something else. I literally went in the back room and I was quiet and cried because I missed doing the character.
Wow. And I have to imagine stepping into, at least for the movie adaptation of it, Morgan Freeman's shoes was...
Yeah, in fact, I had watched it years and years and years ago and made sure I didn't watch it again beforehand. Really? Yeah, because you have to kind of bring your own self to it. You got to read it, look at it, and digest it, and figure out what works for you.
And you've taught arts courses before, so you're passionate.
Yeah. I was a instructor at Pacific Northwest College of Art. I taught for 12 years. I taught web design and graphic design courses.
Okay. And what drives you? What makes you want to do that?
Oh, I love teaching. I'm the oldest of 7 children, so I was kind of like, you know, teaching was just ingrained in me. You know, teach your brother how to tie a shoe, have them do this. So it's just kind of, I'm really a nurturer at heart. Cool. So teaching is a part of that. Okay.
And, okay, so this is the last photo, I promise. Can anyone in the audience tell me who this is? What group this is? All right, so you got the group, which is No Doubt.
Yeah.
You tell me who this is?
My brother played keyboards and trombones for No Doubt. Also has toured with Smashing Pumpkins and, you know, Lenny Kravitz and Tegan and Sarah, a whole bunch of bands.
And why is he NANOG relevant?
He's NANOG relevant because one time he did a NANOG meeting, did the webcasting for NANOG. In fact, he would have been here today, but he's actually in Las Vegas doing a show with Gwen Stefani right now.
All right. All right, I promise that was the last photo, so
okay.
We'll go to a black screen. You guys can put the logo up if you want. You also have other famous relatives, but not for the same reasons.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about your cousin Denise?
Some of you may be aware of back during the civil rights movements early on, there was the church bombing with the 4 little girls. My cousin Denise was one of those who died in that church bombing. So it kind of, the whole civil rights movement's really kind of close and connected in many ways.
And can you tell me about your daughters and how you think of them both in relation to that, and also let's bring it into present day at NANOG?
Wow, I was raised by a woman who was very much a feminist before it was really kind of a word and a term. I remember my first lesson on what it is to treat women with respect. I was about 8, and my mother asked me to do the dishes, and I said to her, it's women's work. And so she made me wash dishes for an entire month. And then afterwards she asked me, do you feel like a woman now? I said no. My daughters, when you raise little girls, I mean, they're a part of you, and you want every opportunity for them that you want for anyone else. And I'm very fortunate that my daughters are doing well, and they're very successful. My youngest daughter, she works for Nordstrom's, has a career with them, and she's also now going to become a massage therapist and a Reiki person. My eldest daughter, she is a ad exec for an agency in Portland, and in fact, she just she's now on the board of directors for the Portland Ad Federation. So that just happened a few days ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right, so let's bring it here to the room. Aside from possibly uncomfortable, how does it feel to walk in Betty's shoes?
Whoa. Betty has enormous shoes. Betty is really, as Ryan had said earlier, she's like the heart of NANOG. I mean, she's formed this. I mean, this is what, she's a part of it. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Before,
$5 million in assets?
Yeah, 5 minutes, what is it? 44 something million in sponsorship revenue, and
Mm-hmm.
comes in a year. It's a huge organization. And
Full-time staff?
Full-time staff, that she ran it with herself and 3 staff altogether. It's crazy. I mean, my head's swimming half the time just trying to digest everything that happens in this organization.
And so now that you've been here for a few months, what do you think the biggest challenges are that you've identified for the organization?
Well, I think within any being, any society, evolution is just kind of mandatory. If you don't evolve, you'll face revolution. And it's how do we make NANOG evolve into an organization that can survive another 25 years.
Just lost my clip. Let's put that right there. Sorry about that. So then if we take it to something a little more tactical,
Mm-hmm.
the website.
Ooh,
What are you going to do about it?
In the process of getting that taken care of. I am,
You're very passionate about it?
yes, I am. I develop websites and have in the past, and it is really, really kind of important to me. I have a strong marketing and communications background, so yeah, it's huge. It's part of who we are. In a modern economic society, your website is basically your calling card. It's how people identify who you are and what you are. And I have a strong sentiment that when you land at a website, within a few seconds, you need to be able to understand what this organization does. And yes, I'm going to be very focused on making that a huge change in the org.
Okay. This was a question that you and I worked on kind of together. I purposely trimmed my beard a little bit this morning so it didn't stand out as much. It could maybe blend in. But what happens to NANOG after the Greybeards retire?
It's interesting NANOG needs to go on. Mm-hmm. I think that there are new engineers that are coming into the fold, and I think the whole dynamic has changed a great deal. I mean, when NANOG started, we had a group of people who were trying to build out national networks, and we have national networks, and they've done an amazing job doing so. But I think things have evolved to the point where the network is here. And now, instead of revolution, we're now looking at evolution and continuing to evolve networks. 5G is the next thing that's coming up. And I think that we need to evolve NANOG to kind of reflect to that. I think we need to bring in more young people, more diversity within the organization. I think another thing that's going to be really critical to the org is kind of engage more stakeholders. I think in the beginning, it was about engineers building out a network. Now there's a lot of people who have a stake in a healthy, robust open internet. And how do we maintain that? How do we get people involved and engaged in that process?
And so, just to kind of add on to that, so how do you feel that we attract and retain younger members?
Well, I think that first of all, we have to kind of reach out earlier. One of the things I'd like to do is add to the events a college weekend, trying to attract college students, trying to set up a program that's geared toward a younger audience, have keynote speakers that are geared toward a younger audience, also have a party on that Saturday evening with something that the younger audience want to engage into. Beefing up our scholarship programs, trying to do more outreach into to schools. I'd love to see NANOG on the road actually go into and have sessions on college campuses.
Okay, and it's been said in the past that people feel like there's too much of a focus on alcohol at some of our events. And do you feel like that, for example, is a blocker towards bringing younger people in? Do you think it's a helper or a hindrance?
Well, I think that, I think doing something like having a college weekend is going to be a transition. It's going to focus on a younger audience. They'll get to know NANOG, the community, what we stand for, and then hopefully they'll start to come and stay for the rest of the conference. Mm-hmm. I mean, alcohol is just kind of the part of the world that we live in. And that being said, I don't drink, so that's a whole nother. So I don't touch food and beverage. Just so you know, I don't drink, I'm a vegan, I don't smoke. So I stay off food and beverage. I let Dave take care of that. But
you're not in charge of the bacon guild?
No, I am not. No,
okay.
not.
Just making sure. Okay, so that's certainly interesting. If you think about that, then dovetailing into that, have you personally ever felt unwelcome at NANOG?
I don't know if I'd say so much unwelcome. I just think that in general, I think we could do a better job of being welcoming as opposed to, hey, you're not welcome here. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes when you're new, I mean, a lot of people who are here, the members who come often, well, they know certain people. And when you get there, you're saying, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. And then there are new people. How often do we reach out and say, hey, you're new to NANOG, welcome to NANOG. Mm-hmm. How active are we trying to get people to feel more comfortable? And that's something I'd like to kind of help change within the culture.
The reason why I ask you that is, so how long have you been here attending NANOGs?
Wow. Almost 8 years. I think Philadelphia was my first NANOG meeting.
All right. That was Comcast, right?
Yes.
I believe, in the Lowe's Hotel.
Yes.
Where would people recognize you from over those 8 years?
Oh.
Why do people not necessarily know who you are?
Yeah, I was in the background. It first started out as the CEO of NANOG. Sorry, not NANOG. Sorry, Verilland, where we were providing network services and webcasting services for NANOG, ICANN, Erin, other organizations, IETF.
And so then after that, you then moved on to?
I moved on and started my own company, Cascadian, and we were providing the webcasting for these events and a few others, and which I'm no longer part of Cascadian.
From a board perspective, that was a huge plus for us to be able to bring someone in who had the chops to understand how this whole event gets run and gets put on. How is it working with this team? You know everyone, right?
Yeah, I do, yeah. It's great. I think that Betty has done a great job of hiring an incredible staff. I had the good fortune of working with Dave, both with Erin and in NANOG. Mm-hmm. Great people, great people. I believe in empowering people. In fact, in a lot of ways, things will shift. You asked me about taking the place of Betty. In a lot of ways, we're making shift. Dave is going to be focusing on kind of the delivery of the meeting itself. Valerie's going to be focusing on the program content. So, which kind of frees me up to focus on some other things, such as getting the website. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay. And tell me about how you feel that the team will support NANOG going forward. Do you feel like we're going to need more help? Are there initiatives that are going to require more people, more time, more money?
When I started to dig in and I realized how large this organization was and how few people it had, I was just shocked that they pulled off these meetings with that small of a crew. It's incredible. Yes, we're going to be expanding a bit. I want to keep it small, try to use contractors whenever possible, but I will be augmenting the core staff so that we can be more efficient in getting things done.
Okay. And do you feel like as an organization we've got the chops from a sponsorship perspective to make sure that we can afford these grand plans?
Yes, I do, and we'll be kind of working on that too. Hopefully we'll try to develop programs and content that will attract more sponsors. I want to work with our existing sponsors so that we can have an environment that they want to continue to support so we can help NANOG grow.
Okay. I want to circle back a little bit and just talk about the D&I, diversity and inclusion efforts that we've undertaken over the last 18 to 24 months. We have the Women in Tech Lunch, which I believe is tomorrow. We have other affinity groups that have formed around NANOG. How can NANOG help to foster that? How can we get more people involved in those groups, and how can we branch those out?
Well, I think that one, it's through member engagement. I think that everything has to kind of start within and then expand from out there. We need people who are going to these meetings to try to find more people who are from diverse backgrounds to get to kind of join in on NANOG and help it grow as an organization. Any group requires diversity to last long term. You can exist in this kind of small ecosystem, but if you really want to remain relevant, you have to diversify, and that's really important to the future growth of NANOG.
And speaking of future growth, how do you feel about the membership program currently? Do you feel like we need to expand that? Do you feel like, we've talked about having members feel like they've got more of a stake in the organization. Sure. Yeah. How do you see that?
Wow, I think membership is very crucial. In fact, I was really kind of a little bit concerned when I realized that you have 1,000, 1,200 people going to a meeting, and yet we only have, I think, about 600 members. Mm-hmm. And I think that expanding the membership is critical to expanding NANOG. We need the support of the community. We need information from the community to help the organization to grow, stay relevant, to meet the needs of the current people going to the meetings, and also to reach out to those who've not participating in NANOG.
If you had a crystal ball, what is this organization in 5 years? And then stretch it out. The CEO of CoreSite this morning said 10 years. Stretch it out to 10 years. What do you think?
Well, I think in another 5 years, again, I'd hope to be much more diverse. I'd like to see a lot more young people, because I think that's where you're going to get your diversity coming in. I'd like to see more engagement with colleges, so that then even once if we get the sponsorships and the funds to do so, I'd like to even start reaching into high school. Mm-hmm. I'd like the people to know what NANOG is. I'd like to be that high school students would think, yeah, I want to get a NANOG scholarship, and to know what that is. I think that is how the organization becomes more relevant as it moves forward.
Okay. And do you think, one thing that was talked about, like, for example, I don't believe that we could fit in the venue that your first NANOG was in, the Lowe's in Philadelphia. It was a beautiful hotel, sure. But many of the beautiful hotels we can no longer fit into just because this organization has grown. Do you think that we'll continue to see the rate of growth that we've seen? Do you think that's going to tail off? Do you think it could go down?
I'm always more concerned about quality versus quantity. And so I want to focus on the quality of the program. And if the quality increases, the volume of people, that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. But I want to focus on quality first. Okay. And see where it takes us.
That's fair. And do you think that programs like NANOG on the Road are good feeder programs for that? How do you see NANOG on the Road fitting into the larger NANOG meeting structure?
I think from my brief exposure to it, that I think NANOG on the Road works best when we have a targeted audience that's looking for support from NANOG in their community. I think it's going to work best when we have local shepherds who say, hey, our community needs some support from NANOG. We need some people to come in, and here are the topics that we'd like them to discuss. And I think NANOG on the Road can be very successful in that. I'd like to see NANOG Road just used as a tool for outreach. And that has no kind of particular shape or form. Mm-hmm. It just depends on what the groups need, and then we kind of adapt and modify it.
And what about the hackathon?
Oh, I love hackathons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had the first exposure in going to IETF meetings. I think it's a great way just to get people engaged, hands-on, doing something. Mm-hmm. At IETF, the hackathons have continued to grow and expand, and so I think it's an incredible opportunity. Just a way for people, instead of just sitting in the chairs and watching something, just to be engaged and involved.
And so, can you think of any other programs that we might want to introduce similar to that? So we've got the hackathon that happens, basically precedes the meeting. Mm-hmm. Do you see having other programs? You mentioned potentially a college program. Are there any other affinity programs you might expect to think
Well,
about?
I think that as we try to explore, expand out and looking more diversity, it's going to create smaller kind of subgroups. So yes, I definitely think there'll be more that'll be coming about. You know, right now they have women in tech, and I'd like to get that expanded, have more programs that are kind of focused on that. And so I think if people believe that there's relevant content for them at a NANOG meeting, they'll come to a NANOG meeting.
Okay. And how do you see our relationship with Erin?
Oh, Erin's great. I'm fortunate in the sense that I've worked with Erin a long time, and also with NANOG as well. And I just think everyone I've worked with at Erin, I've had a great time with. I think they're a great organization, and I think that we dovetail together very well. So I continue to want to keep that relationship going.
Okay. And do you think that we might end up teaming up with any other organizations in the way that we've got the relationship with Erin?
You know, again, probably because of my exposure to IETF, I think that I'd like to see a little more engagement. And kind of what would that look like? I mean, IETF is creating the standards that ultimately that we're going to have to face and deal with. And I think at some point in time, I think it'd be good to kind of get a little closer idea of what they're doing, how it's going to impact us. And maybe we have someone come from IETF who speaks and says, hey, these are the RFCs that are getting ready to come about. This is how it could affect you in the future. Have some Q&A related to it. So.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Ooh, I want to be a good person.
I think I think you already got that. I don't know if I'm going to let you off easy with that question or not.
No, I'm just, you know, you want to do good stuff. You know, you want to make the world a better place. I mean, when you leave this rock, you want to, hopefully it's a little better than when you got here.
I can completely agree with that. So let's talk a little bit about what you do when you're not thinking about NANOG, because now it seems like NANOG is a pretty, not that it wasn't already a pretty large part of your life, but it was one small segment of it. Now it's front and center.
Huge.
What else do you do?
Oh, I love spending time with my family, my grandkids. So I have several grandkids. In fact, last week, you know, talk about diversity. Last week in Portland, we had a Pride Festival. So I took my grandkids to the Pride Festival.
That's awesome. Yeah. How did you end up in Portland?
Oh, I went to Linville College in McMinnville, Oregon. That's how I got exposed to the Northwest, and it just kind of grew on me.
Okay, and you think that's where you probably spend the rest of your days?
Yeah, in the North. I like it. I like the people. They're really mellow. The area is very progressive, and I'm definitely a very progressive person. So yeah, love it.
And do you travel much?
Whenever possible.
Where's your favorite place to go?
Europe. I like parts of Asia. I like the Southwest. I'd spent some time in Santa Fe, and there's a part of my soul that's there. So I love the high deserts, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, are you feeling at home here at altitude?
Oh yeah.
This is your public service announcement. Drink a lot of water while you're here.
Yeah.
Don't spend a lot of time at altitude. You never realize just how dehydrated you're going to get.
Yes.
Especially you go to somewhere like Santa Fe and it's crazy, right?
Oh yeah, it's dry, high, it's great.
Did you go, so you went to high school though where you grew up?
I went to high school in Southern California.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and you also like to remodel a lot.
I am a serial remodeler. I have a house in the Columbia Gorge that I have drywall off the walls that I've rewired, replumbed, and everything else.
Is that a house you want to live in, or it's just
it's
fun to remodel?
No, I'm living in a house. Yeah.
Okay. And so is that a vacation home, or that's
going to be where I just kind of rest my bones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And what's it like? So the staff is spread around the country at this point. What is it like working with a remote staff like that? Was that in the same model with Veroland and Cascadian?
Yeah, yes, both. I've worked with remote staffs, gosh, for the past 10 years.
If you had to give one piece of advice, I know a lot of people in this room work with staffs around not only the country but the world. If you had to give one piece of advice, what is the best way to engage in that model if they're not used to sitting in an office all day with the same people?
Well, I think you have to maintain communication. You also have to have people who are working for you who have a desire to work independently. Not everyone can handle it. There's those of us, it would drive me crazy sitting inside of an office. I'd lose my mind. I like the flexibility of working from home. Sometimes I'll work 12 hours, you know. Sometimes you'll get up in the morning, work, then go out and work out. And sometimes I'll stay up all night long and whatever, just get it done. So,
night owl or morning?
Oh, I'm a morning person. I don't need coffee to wake up.
It's crazy.
Sunrise,
This is why you're not in charge of the food and beverage. How do you convince someone to do something they don't want to do?
You have to, as a parent, one of my rules was that if I couldn't come up with justification on why they shouldn't do something, then I should not tell them not to do something.
How does that work with children?
Patience. You have to really sit down and say and express to them why this is in their best interest, how this is going to make everything work better.
How does that work with network engineers?
Give them a lot of latitude, you know, give them a lot of ownership. You know, when at Veriland, I had some very opinionated network engineers that worked for me, and I found that the best way is just to give them a sense of ownership, give them trust. As a manager, I'm the kind of person I'll say, okay, this is what I'd like you to do. We'll sit down and talk about it. Do you have any questions? Okay, go do it. If you need any help, I'm here. But if you don't, I'm not going to call you. Because I like to hire adults, and I give adults responsibility and let them do their jobs.
Okay. Tell me about why NANOG. Why you came up to me when we first announced that Betty wanted to retire, and we said that we were going to start a search. You said, "I'm interested. How do I apply?" You may have not said those exact words.
Sure.
Said it like that.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
It was Betty.
Okay.
Betty and I were having dinner, and she was sitting talking, and I said, have they got a replacement? What are they doing? She goes, yeah, I don't know yet. They haven't found anyone. And she's going on, and she's talking, and I'm listening, talking. She goes, you know what they knew is they need someone like you to do this job. I go, really? And she goes, yeah, you'd be great at it, blah, blah, blah. And then I started percolating in my head, and I thought, yeah, okay, I could do that. That's how it happened.
All right. And you're obviously passionate about the community. You're passionate about what we do. How are you going to stay interested in this?
Wow.
How are we going to keep you here?
I like to work. I like to make things. I like to create. And NANOG is a great environment to make that happen. I mean, I think Betty, again, has done an amazing job of bringing it where it is. And I think there's just a lot of opportunity for continuing to enhance NANOG. And it's small, yet it's still kind of big with a lot of opportunity. And I just think I'm excited. I think there's just so much we can do to just take the organization and have it evolve into just a shining example of how a NOG should work and operate.
I agree. On that note, how do you feel? Have you ever attended any of the international network groups, RIPE, Apricot /
I've had a little bit of exposure. I'll be honest, I was busy doing other things, so it wasn't the focus. So I'm looking forward to kind of going to some of the other events, RIPE is the one that I've kind of had the most exposure to, and which is, a little different than ours, but they run a very, very smart organization. So there's a lot of groups that I want to kind of learn from so that I can see, okay, I don't believe in it has to be invented here.
Sure.
Someone else is doing something in a great way. We'll apply it here if it makes sense.
Okay. What's the last thing you watched on television?
Luke Cage.
All right, that was not a product placement, I promise.
It's just the truth.
Why? What makes you like it?
I was honest. Okay, I couldn't sleep. It was 4 a.m, and I took my iPhone down to the gym, and I watched Luke Cage while I was on the elliptical machine.
That's awesome. What was the last documentary you watched then? We can go a little deep.
Wait. I know. It was 1968, the documentary on CNN.
Okay.
It's great. If you haven't seen it, it's really, really worth a watch.
All right. With that, I've run out of my structured questions, which we're about right on time. I want to open it up to the audience. Edward told me nothing is off limits, so please, you may regret that statement, but have at it. And so I'll just point to the people. The first question is in the direct back right there, straight back, and the second one will be over here on the right, on my right.
Noah!
Hey, Noah Weiss with CenturyLink. Congratulations, Edward.
Thank you, Noah.
But from our time at Veriline, I was curious, am I one of the opinionated ones?
Noah, you are a rather opinionated individual, but a very gifted engineer.
Well, thanks. Welcome aboard, definitely.
Thank you, Noah.
Hey, would you rather fight a duck-sized horse or 100 horse-sized ducks?
A duck-sized horse.
Wow.
Joel Yegley. So I've known Edward for, I don't know, more than a decade.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit shocked when the NANOG board managed to actually hire someone with people skills. It actually substantially improved my estimation of their skill set.
Thank you.
Thanks for turning over a new leaf. Yes.
Thanks, Joel.
Yeah. But what I would say in that is that I hope that this gives us an opportunity to explore new things and grow in ways that are not simply we're just a bunch of hard-bitten network operators who do need alcohol to lubricate our ability to communicate with other people. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to them as well.
Me as well. More questions? Come on. I have to break out the interview questions here, and I don't want to, the actual job interview questions, and I don't think Edward wants that. All right, well, we'll go deep here and see if that...
See, didn't ask questions, now he wants to go deep. Gosh, okay.
Well, I feel like we did. So, your last job, what would have kept you there instead of coming to do this?
I don't know that anything would have. I just thought this was a unique opportunity. As I started to think about it more and more, I just thought it was going to be a lot of fun. Fun is a big motivator when it comes to work. I believe that if you don't like what you're doing, you need to either change what you're doing or change your attitude. So,
Are you having fun?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's hard. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like drinking from a fire hydrant right now because it's just a lot going on. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's good to hear. I think as a board, we were certainly. I don't think we think of it as fun. I think we think of it as responsibility and gratifying. But it's sometimes hard to see the fun in it. So it's refreshing to hear that you see that.
No, I do. Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. All right, I am out of questions, and I don't want to purposely keep people here.
Thank you.
Is there anything else from the audience? Nothing?
Get to break for lunch early.
Yeah, well, I don't know that lunch is going to be ready, but we'll let the PC handle that. So, thank you.
After you, sir. Thanks.